Hello? Hello? Are we live? Saying yes, saying yes. Happy New Year and welcome to the Hospitality Hotline. My name is Catherine. It's Thursday at 10 o'clock and we go live every week. Bonus thing happening this week. We are now live on Instagram and Facebook, which is helpful because if you want to go back and watch any of these, we think that they will readily be available on my Facebook page in addition to being on the blog. So you can always find these videos archived on my blog. You can now also, hopefully, fingers crossed that everything works, you can now find them on my Facebook page. So that's exciting. I'm happy to be here. I hope you had a great holiday. I am so glad to be back in the rhythm and routine of what we're doing and to talk about hospitality. This week, I thought I would go a little bit of a different direction. I want to talk about my hospitality story, and on Tuesday of this week, I threw out a Ask Me Anything and got some fantastic questions. I'm going to do my best to answer them. I have some notes I'm going to refer to. We're going to dive deep and have fun today. So if you think of any questions while we're doing this, please comment and send them my way. I'll do my best to answer those in the moment as well. But right off the bat, let's dive in. Question number one, did you go to culinary school or are you self-taught? I did not go to culinary school. I am a self-taught home cook, and I learned to cook by reading Martha Stewart Living. I learned to cook by reading cover to cover Cooks Illustrated and watching Ina Garten on the Food Network. Honest to God, that is how I taught myself to cook. I would read and watch, and then I would think something sounded good and I would go into my kitchen and make it and take notes and then repeat. And so I have not ever had any professional culinary training, and I think learning by doing is fabulous. Next question. What event are you most happy to host, or what is your favorite way of making space for people? And without hesitation, my answer to this question, my favorite thing to host is dinner, to have people over for dinner. I love when having people over fits into the context of our home, meaning it's not a huge party, it's just dinner. Just come over for dinner, sit around our table with us, eat our food, be together. Excuse me. Big parties are fun and weeknight casual dinners are great, but having people over for dinner is by far my favorite way to exercise hospitality. I find it to be the right mix of ordinary, like everybody eats dinner, and the opportunity for special. So I think this is one of the things that I loved most about what Ina does, is that she mixes that. You can have someone over for a casual dinner and surprise them with fancy food, or you can have them over for dinner and just serve the best version of meatloaf they've ever had and everyone has a great time. So it's just having people over for dinner is by far my favorite. I also have this daydream about having the kind of home where overnight guests are like not a big deal. Like so many bedrooms and so much space that having people stay with you overnight is almost as easy as having someone over for dinner. I love bedrooms. I love the idea of setting up that cozy space for other people, and that's not a reality in my life, but if it were, that might change the way I answer this question. Okay, another question that actually just came in is, did you always see yourself having a large family with lots of children? We have 4 children, ranging in age currently from almost 17, 15, I'm gonna get this one wrong, 12 and 10. So we have 4 kids, and the answer is I did not always see myself having a lot of children initially when I was younger. I really thought, I don't know what I thought, but it was not something that if you had asked me when I was a teenager or a young adult, I don't think I would have answered saying, oh yes, I want to have a really large family. I'm the oldest of 5 children, so I grew up with a lot of siblings. And once we started having children, I I don't know. We had two very close together, and so that was a little bit of an adjustment. My first two are 15 months apart, and if you have two children that close in age, there's a certain like kindred spirit I feel with you of it is hard the first year or 2 years. When I brought my son home, my daughter was not walking yet. So I basically had two babies, and for about a year, it felt a lot like having twins. And then as they got older, it felt that way even more. But I always tell people this, I would not change it. It's been the best. They have a built-in, I don't know, like they just don't remember life without each other, and it's a sweet gift that they've had. So I don't think I would have orchestrated it that way, but I love that's how it worked out. And then I think when my husband and I decided that we wanted to have more than two children, I think in my head, I immediately wanted to have two more. So I know that this is a complicated issue, and I know that it is definitely not a given that the number of children that you want is necessarily the number of children that you have opportunity to have. But for us, having 4 children has been great. It's not how I saw it, but I'm so thankful to have and having a table full of family is really fun. So as they get older, it feels like we're just sort of watching, that's the Hurley House doorbell, if you're wondering. Come on in. It feels like having a little built-in, I don't know, community. I love watching my children grow older and become friends. That is a sweet gift. And so, yes, we have 4 children. Did not see it that way, but we do. All right, next question. Did your mom cook or grandmother? How did your passion for food ignite? Well, my mother did cook. She was a stay-at-home mom all of my life. She never worked outside the home. She enjoyed being in the kitchen. She spent a lot of her time cooking. But the interesting thing is, I, growing up, was never interested in cooking. I did not feel drawn to that. I, to be honest, kind of wanted nothing to do with it. Like it just was not how I wanted to spend my time. Something you may not know about me is I was but spent a lot of time as a singer-songwriter. I learned to play the piano at a very young age. I wrote songs and played guitar. And when I graduated from college, my first full-time job was singing and traveling full-time. Like, that was my profession. And I still do that a little bit with my local church, but it's not something I do professionally anymore. And so growing up, that was what I was into. I mean, I spent hours at the piano. I wrote poetry and songs and had a band and practiced and just did that whole thing. And that was how I saw myself and what I thought my life was going to be, more than originating in the kitchen. So the answer to the question is yes, but not in the way that you think it would have imprinted on me. And it's funny for me to hear the phrase passion for food, because I know what that means. And I know, obviously, that I care about food and enjoy cooking. It's part of what I love about my work. But I have never seen cooking as the end. I'm not drawn to being in the kitchen as like the end goal. Like I would imagine a chef feels like their pursuit is the food, and I don't know, it's like that's where they give their focus, and that's all they give their focus to. Whereas I really see food and cooking as a tool you need in order to exercise hospitality. And so for me, it's important. It's never the point, but it's definitely important. You can have hospitality without flowers or without setting a table or, I don't know, invitations, but you really, for the most part, can't exercise hospitality without food. And so 95% of the time, food is a component of hospitality, and while it's not the point, good food definitely matters. So I was drawn to cooking as a means to an end. I was not drawn to cooking the way an artist might be drawn to painting, or the way I was drawn to music as a artistic expression. I was drawn to cooking because, I need to be able to do this in order to do this bigger thing that I'm really interested in. So that is how I got into cooking, as it goes, and the way the story is laid out. I happened to be really good at it. I got really good at it, and maybe it was because I had such a focused attention on it for so many years in my home kitchen. But when you get good at something, it kind of makes you want to do more of it. And so it was just sort of this snowball effect of, I'm getting good at this, so I want to do it more. I'm getting better at it because I'm doing it more, and I don't know which chicken and egg kind of situation, but that's my draw to food, I guess. And like I said, good food is never the point, but it does matter in hospitality. Next question, did you have an example of great hospitality growing up, or did you learn it later in life? And this one is a little tricky. Not tricky, just difficult. I did not have a great example of hospitality growing up. I can see, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to do a little get to know me, is I can see the assumptions that would be made about me and my story based on what I do. And I want to let you in a little bit and maybe correct some of those assumptions. The truth is, my love for hospitality has grown out of a sense of loss and brokenness that I experienced as a child and in the home that I grew up in. I do not remember feeling safe most of the time in my childhood home. When I was little bitty and very young, I felt more safe. The older I got, and kind of as you get older, you start to recognize things, your field of vision broadens. And the older I got, the less safe I felt, and the more aware I became of how the home that I grew up in wasn't what I would call normal. It wasn't what I would call healthy. And there were some aspects of it that I'm thankful for. There were a lot of things that were really not okay. So the beautiful part about all this is that my desire to gather people, the seed for that, I think, came from this sense of not ever really having that nostalgic feeling that a lot of people have when they recall their childhood or their childhood home. I think a certain portion of the population recalling their childhood is a comforting sort of memory. And I think people fall into one of two camps. It's either a comforting memory or it's a reminder of what's missing. And for me, it is a reminder of what's missing. So that little seed of not having that sense of safety and nurturing and protection and love that a childhood home probably is supposed to have is the seed from which I have this desire to gather and create that for other people. Now, another part that many of you may not know about my story that I want to let you in on is that 20 years ago, my husband and I got married in August of 2000. And when we got married, my family of origin disowned me. My parents and my siblings cut off relationship with me when I chose to get married. It's a tragic, horrible, awful story, and it was a lot, as you can imagine. It was very unpleasant. I felt betrayed. I felt abandoned. I felt orphaned. I felt left. I felt a lot of really hard things, and as an added layer, really did not know how to cope with much of that. It was tragic, it was difficult, and it was shocking, in the sense, not surprising, but just shocking, that it was a reality. So, when we were married, and we had suffered this enormous loss, and I did not have a sense of family or love or belonging, my pragmatic, solution-based approach was to try and orchestrate that for myself by having people over. I had this wound. I wanted it to go away, and I thought the best way to do that was to get as many people around our table as often as possible and create this thing that was missing. And I genuinely, earnestly thought, if I can just do this enough, I will be okay. Now, that, I'm here to tell you on the flip side, 20 years later, that is not hospitality. That is not realistic. It's not, that's bringing expectations that hospitality is not meant to fill. And I have done a lot of work, intentional work, to get from that place to where I am today. But beautifully, engaging in that unhealthy angle of hospitality, I got really good. I got really good at it. I got really good at throwing parties and cooking dinner and setting the table and coming up with like a machine to just churn out these occasions and events and celebrations to have people at our table. My heart was in a little bit of a wonky place doing it, but I got good at the nuts and bolts of it. And it wasn't until after I was really good at the nuts and bolts of having people over and hosting things that my heart began to change due to some other life things that happened. We began to see the power of hospitality. I began to see the power of hospitality apart from anything I could control, and that really shifted in me. I went back and did some work on the childhood wounds that I had, and just a lot of intentional, hard, emotional, heavy lifting. My heart is now kind of aligned with this idea of hospitality, and when the two come together, everything kind of settles into place. But my model for hospitality was not one that I would want, I don't know, it's not the one that would produce the kind of work that I'm doing today. The kind of work that I'm doing today, and the reason I care so much about this topic, it started from a very, very broken place. And I think it's really interesting that sometimes our darkest places can be sources of light and life and beauty in our story. And for sure, that is true of me. The word hospitality has the word hospital in it. They come from the same word. And I've always thought that when I started engaging in what I thought was hospitality, it was kind of like a hospital for my heart, and I just needed to triage the wound and do what I could and do the best I could, and I did. But it is this full circle kind of event where now I don't, the wound is still there. The wound will always be there, but it's healed, and there's a nice little scar I can show you from time to time, and certain things can really prick it, but it's not open and gaping, and I don't have that sense of desperation and looking to outside things to fill and heal my heart. And with that, the pressure for hospitality to be the thing that makes everything okay is lifted. So I'm able to exercise this, I guess, in a more in a way that I guess isn't asking it to do something it was never intended to do. Anyway, that's a lot of words about that. I want you to know that about me, and I am intentionally answering that question, and I could choose not to, but I want you to know that about me. I think it's important. I think it's obviously part of who I am. It's made me the person I am today. And if anything, apart from just knowing who I am and where I come from, I want to look at you and say, everybody, I know that everyone doesn't have this exact kind of story, but everybody has something hard in their life, some wound, some issue, some hard thing that we grapple with. And in addition to just sort of this global sense of like that can be a real birthplace for beauty, specifically hospitality is the kind of thing where your heart can really find meaning and purpose in that pain. So thank you for letting me share that. Thank you for treating that carefully. Thank you for, thank you for letting me say that. It feels good. Okay, next question. totally shifting gears. What's your favorite app or dessert to bring to a dinner party? Okay, I want to let you know, I'm going to answer this, but I want to let you know there's a resource on the blog from the Ina in a Year project. If you don't know what the Ina in a Year project is, I cooked all 963 of Ina Garten's published recipes in 1 year, blogged about the process every week, and at the end of the project, I did a post of my top 50 recipes from the project. If you go to my blog, there's a menu tab at the top, click on the categories. One of the categories is Ina in a Year. It will bring up all the posts from the Ina in a Year. And if you scroll down a little bit, it was one near the end of the project, or at the end of the project. It's called My Top 50 Ina Recipes. And from that, the 3 appetizers that I'm crazy about are her caramelized bacon, where you take bacon and there's this brown sugar pecan cayenne mixture that you put on top and then bake it. Her pan-fried onion dip, which has been on repeat in my house all holiday long. I don't know what it is about this dip that's so freakishly good, but pan-fried onion dip, serve it with potato chips, it's out of this world. And then of course her maple chipotle roasted nuts, which are also the maple chipotle roasted nuts that we make here at Hurley House, but they are fabulous. That would be my top tip for appetizers. And then if I'm bringing a dessert to a dinner party, assuming there's no, dietary restrictions and anything is fair game, I think it's fun to bring a big pan of apple crisp and a half gallon of vanilla ice cream. I think a platter of outrageous brownies is always a winner, and you can doll those up. You can put lots of things into brownies or onto brownies and make them special. I think lemon bars make a great dessert. And then you might remember the mocha, what's it called? Mocha chocolate icebox pie that I made from Ina's, I can't remember which cookbook. I'll link to it. It's the one where you put the layers of cookies and you top it with cream and more cookies and cream, and then you refrigerate it, and it ends up turning cookies into something that tastes like cake. It's fabulous. That's one of my all-time favorites. I made that this year for Christmas dessert. It was a huge hit. And last but not least, how do you like your steak? And Alex, I like my steak medium rare, cooked on fire, the way God intended, not bathed in water. So thank you for that thoughtful, insightful question. Next week, get excited. The topic we're going to be talking about is birthdays for 2 reasons. Number 1, birthdays might be my most favorite special occasion. I love it more than holidays. If birthdays could be a holiday, I would make them a holiday. But number 2, next week is a birthday week in our family. This is kind of a fun story. My oldest daughter, Annie, her birthday is the day before my birthday, which is interesting. Maybe I'm going to talk about this next week, because if you have a child with a birthday that butts up right next to yours, either before or after, in the beginning, it was really tricky for me to navigate and to be able to celebrate her, but also celebrate me, or it was a little treacherous for a couple years, but I figured out what worked for us, and maybe I'll share that with you. And so we're going to talk about birthdays and any questions about birthdays, children's birthday parties, birthday gifts, birthday menus, birthday cakes, how to make birthdays special, what if you don't like birthdays. Send me your questions. I'd love to answer them. So we will be back here next week, Thursday, 10 o'clock, hopefully on both channels. Hopefully this is working. And I thank you so much for being here and for watching and listening. It's great to have you. Have a great week.